Hello, and welcome to this program on solving problems using the GROW model. This video is for anybody who wants to improve their problem-solving skills, either for themselves or to help others. My name is Bob Griffiths, and I'm a coach and facilitator based in the UK. I've been using GROW for many years with individual clients and groups to help them find their own solutions to problems, issues, and challenges. While you can use GROW by yourself, it's a lot easier if you work with somebody else. I work with my clients using GROW, so in this video I'll be using the term client for the problem owner and coach for the person who's helping them. GROW is probably the best known coaching model in the world today. It was developed in the 1990s by watching how expert facilitators worked and analysing what they did that helped clients develop solutions to their own problems. I will use this map to illustrate how GROW works. In a short while I'll explain all the stages of GROW, but first we need to clarify what we mean by a problem in GROW terms. Many people believe this definition of a problem is self-evident, but for the purposes of GROW we define a problem in a particular way. In order to have a clear problem, there has to be two elements present. The first element is there must be something a client is trying to accomplish, a goal or wish. The second element is that it must be something that's obstructing them achieving what they want, so they cannot simply move straight to their goal. It's very important to understand that both elements must be present before someone has a problem. And the more clearly you clarify both elements, the easier it is to solve the problem. Let me illustrate what I mean with a couple of examples. The statement, "I have a headache," is not a clear problem. However, if we add, "I have a headache, it's stopping me concentrating, and I have to sit an exam I want to pass in an hour," the problem becomes clearer. This is because in the second statement, we know both what the person wants, pass the exam, and what's preventing them from doing so, the headache. So we have a clear problem. Let's look at another example. "I don't like my job." This is a statement and not a clear problem. If we add, "I don't like my job, I want a new one, but I'm afraid of interviews," it becomes a clear problem. The value of defining a problem in this way is that once you've expressed the problem in this format, very often the routes around the obstacles start to become clear. It's also important to remember that the problem only exists when the person cannot find a way around the obstacles. Once you have a way around the obstacles, the situation is no longer really a problem. It becomes a project which the client can go out and accomplish. In the headache example, if the client's headache can be cured by an aspirin and they have access to an aspirin, the solution becomes to take the aspirin, the problem's gone. In the second example, if the client has a fear of interviews, the solution becomes to learn how to conquer the fear. Once they know how they're going to deal with the fear, the problem is turned into a project to use the self-help book to conquer the fear. Before we go on to look at the complete GROW model in detail, let's look at what typically happens when a person comes to another person with a problem. Normally, the first instinct of the helper is to offer suggestions and advice. This can work, sometimes, but it has a number of negative consequences. Firstly, the problem owner is deprived of the opportunity to find their own solutions, and that builds dependence. Secondly, the solution might not be correct for the problem owner at that time, especially if you've not clarified the real obstacles. Most of us have experienced giving a friend a perfectly good solution to their problem, only to hear them come back with "yes, but," and the reasons it will not work. So I'm not saying never give advice to people, but I am suggesting that it's often helpful to hold back from giving advice before you've really understood the problem elements, i.e. what the client wants and what's really obstructing them. Now we've defined what we mean by a problem, we can take the concept further and look at the full GROW model. The full GROW model takes the concept of having a goal and obstacles and expands on it. In the full model there are 6 stages. They are overall goal, session goal, reality, obstacles, options, and way forward. Here we return to the map. The map is a useful analogy because it visually represents the journey a client will follow using GROW. On the map, the goal is your destination point, where you want to be. This is the equivalent of what the client wants to achieve. The session goal is what the client wants out of the GROW session. The reality is the start point, where the client is now in relation to their goal. The obstacles are what stops the client going directly from where they are to where they want to be. The options are the routes around the obstacle to get to the goal. The way forward is the client actually starting on the journey. Having had an overview of the process, let's look at each of the stages in more detail. Firstly, the goal. When you have a problem, the first thing the client has to do is define the end point, the goal, the success criteria they want which will solve their problem, issue or challenge. The end point of the journey needs to be defined in clear, smart terms so that both coach and client know when they've achieved it. Once you have a goal, the next stage is the session goal. This is what the client wants out of working with the coach in the session. Usually this will be a plan for how to achieve the main goal, but it should always be checked. Once the goal and session goal are agreed, the next stage is to define the reality. In Grow, reality is not where you ask if the client's goal is realistic. That should be done at the goal stage. The reality is where the client is now in relation to the goal, so it should be defined in the same terms. So if the goal is to earn $1,000 a year, the reality is what the client currently earns. You should also include in reality any tools, ability or experience the client might have which will help them achieve their goal. Now we come to the obstacles. This is where most people want to start. As mentioned above, there have to be obstacles, otherwise the client would have achieved the goal by themselves. Normally obstacles are found in the client themselves, other people, a lack of resources or the environment. It's important for the coach and client to define the obstacles in such a way that both understand how an obstacle is stopping them move forward to their goal. Once the obstacles are clear, then it's usually fairly straightforward to work out ways around them. These are the options. Options, as the name suggests, do not have to be followed, but allow the client to have choices about how they get around the obstacles so they can move forward. Then the client chooses which of the options they will put into operation. The coach helps them think about the first steps for the options they've chosen, and these will be the way forward steps. So we have gone all the way from an undefined problem right through to the point where the client has actual steps they're going to take which will move them towards their goal. Not bad for the 1 to 2 hours it usually takes to get to this point for a difficult problem. Many problems that people are stuck with can be dealt with this way if you approach them effectively. Grow does not work with all problems, but is very effective in many different types. I would invite you to see how you can learn to help others using Grow. If you'd like any help, please contact me at bob@bobgriffiths.com and I will be pleased to see if I could help. If you'd like to know more about Grow, have a look at the website www.bobgriffiths.com. Happy problem solving.